Today we are breaking down 7 players that you could sell high on in fantasy football to get the most that you possibly can out of these guys before your friends catch on. Because there's a chance that these players just can't sustain this production. Odds are that they can't, and we're going to start with one of the players who just returned from an injury in week 5 and had a massive game. And that man's name is Xavier Worthy, who returned for a Kansas City Chiefs offense that desperately needed him. I mean, he got hurt on the 3rd play of the game in week 1, right? Travis Kelce over the middle of the field dislocates Xavier Worthy's shoulder, tears his labrum, and then the offense has looked terrible for the past month since then. But Worthy returned to this game, and as you can see right here from the game logs, he immediately became the #1 receiver once again with Rashee Rice still out. 5 catches, 83 yards. He had plays all over this field early and often in this one. He was taking hits. He was quoted after the game to saying, like, the second I took that first hit, I was like, okay, I'm back. I'm playing football now. And he looked great the rest of the way. Not only did he lead the team in receiving with 83 yards and a team high 5 catches, he also led the team, which is not what you want to see every single week, in rushing as well because he had 2 carries for 38 yards. You would like to see the backfield look a little bit better. Pacheco did in this game somewhat on his 7 limited carries, but Xavier Worthy was used all over the field. He had 120 or so total yards in his return, so all of this is good news. As you can see right here, JJ Zacharyson points out that in his return, Worthy played 71% of the Chiefs snaps, or 71% route rate, a 23% target share led the team, and according to, right now, as if we pull it up right here, Ryan Heath on Twitter, Xavier Worthy's target shares over his last 7 full games, including in week 4, he goes out there, he has a 27% dating back to last year, 27%, 27, 24, 25, and then he had a 22 to 23% target share when he returned, depending on the source that you look at in week 4. So what does all this mean? Well, it just means that he is the clear-cut alpha on this team when, and this is the big asterisk, when Rashee Rice is not active. And that's the real problem, right? Like, Rashee Rice is going to come back. That's kind of the root of why selling high in Xavier Worthy off of a very good game is something to look into. And the other reason why is because of this right here. Data favors him returning in week 4, which he did according to SportsMD analysis on Twitter. But he says re-injury risk remains high all season, up to a 50% chance of a re-injury. This guy has a torn labrum. He is playing with a torn labrum. It doesn't just heal in 2 to 3 weeks. If he takes another hit, if he extends too high and then he takes a hit right there, he's probably done for the rest of the season. And then my other concern is that once Rashee Rice returns, there's a very good chance, almost a guaranteed chance, that Rice is going to move into the slot in this offense, which pushes Xavier Worthy to the outside. And that's somewhat of a concern because in the first 10 games of the season, or the first 9 games of the season last year, Xavier Worthy was mostly an outside receiver as a rookie, and he only averaged 8.7 fantasy points per game. It wasn't until the second half of the season when they moved him into that Rashee Rice role, and in his final 8 games, he averaged 13.6 fantasy points, twice as many yards. His targets went from 4 to 7 per game. Now, of course, those first 9 games are also the first 9 of his career, so that's part of it. Maybe he's just struggling to get acclimated in the NFL, but he has been a much better producer out of the slot in this Chiefs offense, which basically everybody is when they get that role. Rashee Rice in the past, week 1, Marquise Hollywood Brown had 16 targets in that role this year, right? So once he gets pushed to the outside, maybe we see a little bit of an efficiency drop in his total fantasy week in and week out. It becomes maybe more of like a boom or a bust option. So before the return of Rashee Rice in 3 weeks, before the potential role change for Xavier Worthy, and also this looming potential re-injury risk, why not try and trade Worthy high off of this 110 total yard game that he just had? You could trade him 1-for-1 for AJ Brown right now. I would definitely do that. Jaden Daniels, depending on the makeup of your team, if an elite quarterback makes you much better and you have wide receiver depth, I would definitely do that right now. We scroll down a little bit more. I mean, even guys like Woody Marks are pretty close to Xavier Worthy rest of season. That seems crazy. I wouldn't be doing that deal right now, but Woody Marks is a borderline top 60 player rest of season. Xavier Worthy, once Rashee Rice comes back, is going to be in that same range of like a 60th or overall, a 60 or so overall player, like a 5th round pick if we redraft. Now the next player, let's talk about a rookie here, Cam Skattebo of the New York Giants, 4th round rookie running back. This is somebody that I think is like the #1. If I had to rank the players I'm trying to sell high right now before week 5, it's definitely Cam Skattebo because there's so much hype about this guy. First off, he was a beloved college football player. Everybody loved this guy, and once the national attention got there in the college football playoff of him dominating in a game against Penn State, or a game against Texas, well, it just hit another level in terms of how much of a hive that Cam Skattebo had. And we've seen these last 2 weeks, Cam Skattebo get more usage. A couple of weeks back, Tyron Tracy gets hurt, so we see Skattebo get 20 plus touches. This past week in week 4, and Jackson Dart's first start, 25 carries for Skattebo in this game. He adds in 2 receptions, so he's getting 27 touches. Now, this is all this guy did in college. He caught passes, he ran the rock, sometimes he threw a ball as well, but he was seeing massive workloads and holding up. That's what we saw in his 4th ever game in the pros in week 4. As you can see from Ryan Heath's tweet right here, speaking of Cam Skattebo, he commanded 83% of the backfield opportunities in his first full game without Tyron Tracy, including all 5 backfield carries inside the 10-yard line. So this is fantastic. He's getting the red zone usage, he's catching passes, he's seeing a massive workload, but there's a lot of red flags to this profile. First up, Tyron Tracy was expected to miss 2 to 4 weeks, so he could return probably as soon as next week. And once he returns, now maybe Skattebo, the guy they spent the 4th round draft pick on at the top of the 4th round, maybe he's just going to be the guy moving forward. forward. But let's not forget, Tracy played 74% of the snaps week 1, 40% of the snaps week 2. His role was reduced because he ended up missing a pass protection in that game. And then in week 3, he was the starting running back ahead of Scadaboo. He had 7 carries in this game. He was playing the majority of the snaps early in that game against Kansas City in the Sunday night primetime game until he ended up getting injured. So he was still going to be the starting running back for those 3 games, all 3 games until the injury. So once he returns, even if he doesn't go back to seeing 70% of the snaps, what if he just sees 40%? That's going to be much more than currently Cam Scadaboo is giving up right now to Devin Singletary. And although I'm not the biggest fan of Tyron Tracy in terms of being like a workhorse back, I do think he's a talented back. I mean, again, as a rookie in a limited role where he wasn't the starter all season last year, over 800 rushing yards, over 200 receiving yards, 1,100 total yards as a guy who was converted from being a wide receiver just 2 years prior during his time in college at Purdue. So this is a talented player who will at least be on the field, and he could return as soon as 1, maybe 2 weeks from now. Then there's also the concern when we just look at the overall Giants offense, when you're going to lose Malik Nabers to IR, he's not going to be back for the rest of the season, and your top wide receivers are Wan'Dale Robinson, Darius Slayton, and Jalen Hyatt. Like, how much of a threat is there? The biggest threat in this offense is no longer Malik Nabers. He's not there anymore. It's not going to be Darius Slayton. It's not going to be Wan'Dale Robinson. The biggest threat is probably going to be the backfield, like what they're actually going to be able to establish on the run when opposing defenses are trying to take that away, make Jackson Dart beat you with these B team receivers. And oh yeah, Jackson Dart himself is also a mobile quarterback who seems like after his first start, he's definitely the locked-in starter here in week 1 in his first ever game. 10 carries, 54 yards, stole a red zone touchdown as well in that game. So that's something else you have to worry about. Tyron Tracy coming back. The offense itself not moving the ball without Malik Nabers and a mobile quarterback. As of right now, like, Cam Scadaboo isn't even all that efficient, right? This game, he had 3.2 yards per carry. He's averaging like 3.5 to 3 yards per carry on the season. So I think it's the perfect time to sell high on this guy before Tyron Tracy comes back. I mean, let's look at some of the names that you can sell on Cam Scadaboo for right now. I had Jackson Dart in there for a second, but let's look at some of these names. Ladd McConkey, I'll take Ladd McConkey. George Kittle, I'll take George Kittle. DK Metcalf, I would take Metcalf. Tyler Warren, definitely Kamara. I would take probably pretty close to Chris Godwin at this point. Like, they're both top 60 to 70 overall players. I would definitely take Marvin Harrison. Rome Odunze is just a joke. Rome Odunze is a top 20 player rest of the season. That one's easy. So obviously these are over the past 24 hours or so as of this recording. So there's a lot of names out there right now that you could trade Cam Scadaboo 1-for-1 for. Now I will say in week 5, he does have a good matchup. Based on the bye weeks, he is a top 10 player in my running back rankings as of right now. So if you want to hold him for week 5, maybe he goes out, finds the end zone. Maybe he goes out and has a 15-16 fantasy point day and the stock grows even larger before Tyron Tracy comes back. I think that's a good idea. Play him week 5, then trade him. Now before we get into the next player, 2 seconds of your time to hit the subscribe button. It goes a really long way, and we are oh so close to 200,000 subscribers, a big goal of mine. It would mean a lot, so just double check that, make sure that you are subscribed. Okay, now let's talk about Ashton Jeanty. And look, he's in this video. Everybody in this video is a sell high. It doesn't mean they're bad players. They're obviously not. All the guys we've talked about are good NFL players right now, or at least have the potential, like Cam Scadaboo, a rookie, to be those, and Ashton Jeanty, a rookie. But the whole goal of this is to take advantage of a player who maybe just had a good game or is having a good unsustainable stretch and get rid of them before that comes back down to earth. And before week 4 began, I got so many questions over in the Blueprint on Patreon. You can check it out at jointheblueprint.com. Every single question it seemed like I was getting this past week: what do I do with Brian Thomas, Ladd McConkey, and Ashton Jeanty was the one running back everybody was talking about. I was saying you don't sell low, you hold him, you wait for a good game, and then if you want to trade him, you could do that, and now you have that opportunity. Look, I'm not dying to trade Ashton Jeanty, many of your first and maybe second round picks for you this year, especially after he had a 21 carry, 138 yard game. Oh yeah, then he goes out there as well, and he adds in 2 catches for 2 receiving touchdowns as well, so he has a massive game in this one. I will say though, if you were worried about Ashton Jeanty, if you took him and you were like, there's no way he's paying off a first round draft price, this is the best possible opportunity to sell after a 150 yard multi-touchdown game. And you got to see like all the signs point in the right direction. His backfield carry share went up, right? Week 1 and week 2, it was 85 and 90%. Then it dipped in week 3 to 68%. Week 4, it was back up to 84%. So this is a guy whose usage is back. This is a guy who after the first 3 weeks of the season, everybody was concerned because 101% of his yards were coming after contact. His offensive line wasn't blocking for him at all. But I will tell you, in week 4, the offensive line was also not good. It was better than the previous weeks, but it still wasn't good. They weren't getting a lot of push. And more importantly, the best member of that offensive line, tackle Colton Miller, he suffered a high ankle sprain in this game. He's going to miss 4 to 6 weeks as well. So now your number one, this is already an offensive line that is terrible, arguably the worst in the league. Now your number one offensive lineman, a tackle on that team, is just gone as well. This is a bad situation for Ashton Jeanty. He had a good game this past week, but that's not always going to happen. He's not always going to break off 60-plus yard touchdown runs. So far on the season, Ashton Jeanty amongst all running backs ranks 60th according to Player Profiler in his run blocking grades, run blocking grading. So he's getting the 60th best run blocking. Again, many of you know this. There's only 32 NFL teams in the league, which means that he is basically dead last, and even other backups are getting better blocking than Ashton Jeanty, and it makes sense when all of his yards are coming after contact. It also doesn't help that as of right now, the Raiders offense, this is filtered by least yards in the league. Look how bad the Titans are. I mean, this is insane. Only 842 yards of offense. The Bengals are even worse. Only 821 yards of total offense in 4 games is disgusting, but the Raiders are bottom 10 in overall offense this year. They don't look that great since week 1. Geno Smith has struggled. So the goal would be that those things change, but the offensive environment is bad. The offensive line is atrocious right now. And it's not like Ashton Jeanty. Sure, he had 2 catches this past week, but it's not like he's catching 5-6 balls, getting 5 or 6 targets a game. So again, I'm not dying to trade Ashton Jeanty in the leagues that I have him in, but if you were worried about Jeanty coming into this week, this is the perfect time to potentially trade him. Look at the deals that have happened the last 24 hours. I would definitely trade Ashton Jeanty for a Dunze right now. Ashton Jeanty for Davante Adams is a pretty fair deal. Ashton Jeanty for AJ Brown, maybe you can get something plus AJ Brown, but that's a pretty fair deal. Jeanty plus Nico Collins is awesome. Bucky Irving would have been good before that injury. Drake London's a fair deal. Josh Jacobs, as he's on his bye week, is the perfect deal. If you could flip Ashton Jeanty for Josh Jacobs off a 30-point fantasy day, now going into the bye week, the Packers will get healthy coming out with some good matchups against like the Bengals coming out of their bye. Do that deal. Now, in week 5 specifically, if you want to see where Ashton Jeanty ranks in my top 50 overall player rankings, you could check it out completely free with the link in the description below or by heading to fantasyrankingsfree.com. That will take you to this page where you just enter your email and I'll send you the top 50 overall rankings for this week, and it will update every single week of the year as well on Thursdays and Sundays to make sure that you have those top 50 overall rankings so you know exactly who you can be starting. If you want to see my full top 150 rankings, waiver wire tiers, trade tool, and a whole lot more, access to Ask Me One-on-One questions, all that stuff is in the Fantasy Blueprint. That's why I built it. Over 10,000 people are currently using it, and I'm currently using it in all my leagues. You can check it out and learn more with the link in the description below or by heading to jointheblueprint.com. That is jointheblueprint.com. All right, the next guy who I think is the perfect sell high candidate is DK Metcalf. After he had another nice game for the Pittsburgh Steelers overseas in week 4 against the Minnesota Vikings. 5 catches, 126 yards, and a touchdown in that game. Monster performance of 20-plus fantasy points. Most of it came in the first half of this game because in the second half of the game, the Steelers just leaned on Kenneth Gainwell. They leaned on the run. They played with a multi-score lead, and DK Metcalf wasn't needed all that much. But if you watch this game, you know DK Metcalf had a slant for an 80-yard touchdown, a missed tackle by Harrison on the Vikings in the defensive secondary, and that basically just led to a walk-in 80-yard touchdown for DK Metcalf, who has elite speed. As JJ Zacharyson points out, the concern here is that DK Metcalf had a monster week in week 4, 23.6 fantasy points, but he still hasn't hit a 25% target share in a single game this year. So this guy has not seen a strong to elite target share in a single game this year. Sure, he's the number 1 receiver on his team, but he's a number 1 receiver on a team that's not throwing the ball a lot, and they're not throwing the ball at all downfield. So far on the season, the dude's only averaging 5.5 targets per game. Just a 21% target share on the season, ranks 30th amongst all wide receivers in the league, but he's outproducing this because of some big touchdown grabs, right? You look at Aaron Rodgers so far this year, he ranks 36th in the NFL in air yards per attempt, just 4.7 air yards per attempt. In terms of throwing downfield, he's basically not doing it all. Only 6 deep attempts through 4 games, ranks 30th in the NFL. So far, over the last 15 years, Aaron Rodgers is second worst amongst all starting quarterbacks the last 15 years in terms of his average depth of target downfield. He's basically just checking it down on average right now. He's averaging like 6 yards per depth of target, which is pretty atrocious. And in general, this team isn't going to throw the ball a lot. We kind of know that this team wants to run the ball, lean on their defense, though their defense has not been good this year. 23 pass attempts in the previous week, 22 pass attempts this last week against the Vikings when they played with a lead. Like, these things are not that great. You're in a run-first offense where your quarterback is older, not mobile. He's not throwing downfield. Like, when these 80-yard touchdowns go away, and they're going to go away, spoiler alert, you're going to be left with DK Metcalf in the 4th worst offense in the NFL right now in terms of yards per game, right next to the Bengals, who have been terrible, the Titans. The Eagles, by the way, have been terrible. Don't let anybody tell you that the Eagles, wrong camera there. Let's get this one back on track. There we go. The Eagles have been terrible. They're 4-0. They've squeaked out some wins. They faced some banged up teams. The entire Bucs offense was banged up in week 4, right? This is a very, very bad offense in terms of like what they have to do out there. They milk the clock, they get a couple of short runs, and then they move the chains. But everything in terms of that offense for Philadelphia has been bad. It's being covered up by these wins. But this is a Steelers offense that is currently bottom 5 in the NFL in yards per game. They're not a pass-first offense, so their number 1 wide receiver, after coming off of a 20-point game, heading into the bye week, sell him now to a team in your league that's 4-0, 3-1, can survive the bye week without him as soon as possible. Some potential trades out there. Quentin Johnston, 1-for-1's a fair deal. Ladd McConkey, I think at this point, I'd probably still rather have a DK Metcalf. Brian Thomas, I'd do that deal, right? Jamar Chase, I would definitely do that deal if somebody's concerned about him. Marvin Harrison and Chris Olave are pretty close. Basically, at this point, maybe even across other positions, like get a Javonte Williams for DK Metcalf, that feels pretty good. Another player, if we talk about like Ashton Genty, like I'm not dying to trade Alvin Kamara right now, but there are some signs that maybe are a little bit concerning for Alvin Kamara after another quiet fantasy day and stat line this past week. 15 carries for 70 yards. Backup Kendre Miller sees 11 carries, so starting to eat into that backfield carry a lot. He gets 65 yards, averages 5.9 yards per carry. The one good thing for Alvin Kamara, though, he had 4 catches, although it was only for 2 yards. He started to see his target share come up a little bit. So if we look at what he did this past game, 72% of the snaps, only 50% of the backfield rush attempts, but in this game, he saw a 21% target share, easily his best target share on the season. Let's pull it up right here. So far this season, if we look at the target shares for Alvin Kamara, just 5%, 17, 5, but his highest one of the year so far at 21%. The problem is it went for 4 catches for 2 yards. Alvin Kamara, if you just watch his tape this year, doesn't have the burst, doesn't look all that great out there, and is now seeding work in important situations to back up Kendre Miller, who he looks really good. You can check this out right here from Ryan Heath. Like, yeah, Alvin Kamara had the target share like he says right here, but what happened with Kendre Miller got the first 2 carries inside the 10-yard line on the season, including one drive where he was subbed out, or Kamara was subbed out for him. So again, it's a small sample. It's just 2 carries inside the 10-yard line, but Kamara was specifically taken off of the field to put Kendre Miller on for those. Kendre Miller, they're hyping up in terms of his practices. They're giving him more carries and snaps per game right now. He's the clear RB2 in a team that really is playing for nothing. They're not making the playoffs, and Alvin Kamara, there's a chance he's traded by midseason. In terms of the workload, like the volume is there. This team's running a lot of plays, 16.3 carries per game, 3.8 targets per game. Like, you're getting 20 opportunities per game. That's why I'm not dying to trade Alvin Kamara right now. The problem is he's just not the same old Alvin Kamara. Extremely inefficient right now. 3.9 yards per touch, 42nd in the NFL. In past years, Alvin Kamara is averaging 5 to 6 yards per touch. With his receptions, with his rush attempts, he's always out there being extremely efficient. Not the case this year. Now this offense, though, they're running a lot of plays. They're not scoring a lot of touchdowns, which is leading to less touchdowns, less efficiency for Kamara. He's a guy, based on his name value, you should probably try and sell before maybe this becomes like a 50-50 backfield. Because I don't think Kendre Miller is going to take over the starting job, but he's definitely pushing for more work. Again, just look at this past week alone. 15 carries for Alvin Kamara, 11 for Kendre Miller. In past seasons, heck, even week 1 of this year, this would have been 22 carries for Kamara and like 4 for Kendre Miller. It's starting to get a lot closer here. So if you can make these types of deals, for A.J. Brown, I do that deal. For Rashee Rice, I definitely do that. For Tedero McMillan, I would do that deal. For Brock Bowers, I would do that. If you can make these types of deals that are happening right now, these are real deals happening in fantasy leagues over the past 24 hours, try and send some offers in with Alvin Kamara's name on it and see what you get back. Now, before we get into this next Hall of Fame running back, yes, Hall of Fame running back that you should consider trading away. I don't know if you know this, but I've teamed up with DraftKings Pick 6, the official daily fantasy sports partner of the NFL, and they're offering you a chance to win some real money. All right, here's what I'm talking about. Just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats, whether it's your favorite team, whether it's a guy that you like that week based on his matchup, and that allows you to unlock the upside to potentially win some real money. It's as simple as that. There's no convoluted rules. There's no gimmicks. You just pick more or less on some players, and then you watch those players perform. And now here's the best part, a little bit of a bonus for you. New DraftKings Pick 6 customers get $50 in bonus picks with just a $5 entry on your first pick set. This is your opportunity to put your football knowledge to the test. Just download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use code SAL. In partnership with DraftKings Pick 6, the crown is yours. Now, that Hall of Fame running back I'm talking about is Derrick Henry, because look, he had a very solid opening week for fantasy football, but since then it's been terrible. Remember week 1 against the Buffalo Bills in prime time, #1 fantasy running back. Everybody was like, oh my God, this guy, he's still got 182 yards, 2 touchdowns. Since then, the running back 59, the running back 25 saved by a touchdown, was very inefficient in that game, and the running back 43, 58 scoreless yards, 57, and 23 scoreless yards over his last 3 games. This has been very concerning. During that time, just 11, 12, and 8 carries. Over these last 3 weeks, Derrick Henry has only averaged 10 carries per game, and I hate to break it to you, it's probably about to get much worse with Lamar Jackson injured. As you can see right here, Lamar Jackson is averaged to miss 2 to 3 weeks. They have a bye week, so there's a good chance that he's going to return in week 8. So for these next 2 to 3 weeks, you're going to be with Derrick Henry, without Lamar Jackson, with one of the worst defenses in the league, a defense that is also banged up, giving up a ton of points, and Derrick Henry is not a pass-catching running back. When you fall behind, he's coming off of the field for Justice Hill, just like we saw last week. Because this past week, Justice Hill, he only had 3 carries, right? They didn't run the ball a lot. Henry only had 8 in this game, though Hill looked good, 76 yards and a touchdown. But more importantly, he came on the field as the pass catcher, second on the team behind only number one receiver Zay Flowers. Justice Hill, 5 catches, 41 yards and a touchdown in this game. Justice Hill, 6 targets in this game as well. He actually saw more opportunities than Derrick Henry when you factor in just both rushing and receiving in this game. He had over 100 yards and multiple touchdowns. So Justice Hill is going to be involved in this offense when the team plays from behind, which is going to be often now that Lamar Jackson isn't in there. And even when Lamar comes back, they're probably going to play from behind often, like we saw against the Chiefs in week 4 when they faced decent teams because their defense stinks. So I am very concerned about Derrick Henry, who only played 51% of the snaps on the season so far, right? This is not just last week. On the season, through 4 games, he's only played 50% of the snaps. Justice Hill, because the defense has been so bad, has played 49% of the snaps. Derrick Henry had a massive week 1. He scored a touchdown in week 3. He has the name value that can get you some nice pieces. Rest of season, he's still a top 20 overall player. Don't get me wrong. But if you could flip him for Saquon, who's somewhat underperforming right now, do that deal. I would even potentially flip him for Trey McBride and somebody else. JSN off of his worst game of the year, maybe that's the perfect trade. JSN is a top 10 player rest of season. Josh Jacobs, I would probably swap Henry for as well. Sounds crazy to want to trade Derrick Henry. Again, you're not selling low on him. Try and sell potentially high. It's a bad game he's coming off of, but you get my point on the name value of Derrick Henry. Similar things could be said for Stefon Diggs, except he's actually coming off of his best performance by far of the season. Stefon Diggs' first 100-yard game of the year, first 100-yard game in quite some time. 6 catches, was the clear number 1 receiver in this game in terms of usage overall. Stefon Diggs in that game had a massive 41% target share against the Panthers. His previous season high was 22%. He ran 60% of the routes in this game as well. Or no, he ran 82%, a season high in this game as well. Everything for Stefon Diggs. He's a 30-plus-year-old receiver coming off of a torn ACL. Normally, we see this 2 to 3 to 4 week ramp-up period. It looks like that's what's happening because right now, he's currently playing a season high in usage. On the season, he leads this team in terms of wide receivers with a 19% target share. He's ran just 65% of the routes. But again, this past week, according to JJ Zachariason, that was a season high 82% this past week. So everything right now for Stefon Diggs is actually trending up, and one of the offenses led by Drake May that looks like one of the most efficient offenses, believe it or not, this Patriots offense the last 2 to 3 weeks. So those are all really good things. So far on the season, he is the wide receiver 39 in expected fantasy points and wide receiver 39 in actual fantasy points. So everything he's getting right now, he's actually producing, and it should only get better as his role increases, right? Drake May has looked very good so far this season. Things have looked phenomenal for Drake May. Maybe your one concern is like volume, right? Week 1, they got into kind of a shootout. Week 2, just 23 passes. Week 4 in a blowout, just 17 passes. I do think, though, when they're not playing terrible teams, like the Carolina Panthers, where they're playing with a massive leader, the Miami Dolphins this year, they'll probably be throwing 30 to 35 times a game for Drake May. So Stefon Diggs, if you have him on your team, he looks like a player trending up right now. Sure, he's an older guy, but it looks like a player trending up. But off of a 100-yard game for an older receiver coming off this torn ACL, maybe you can just flip him, right? Let's see what you could flip him for. I would definitely flip him for Jameson Williams. That was a deal that recently happened. I would flip him for Woody Marks at this point, probably a top 60 overall player. T. Higgins, I would probably rather have Stefon Diggs, although that one is a little bit closer. You could scroll here. Mike Evans, who comes back from injury, hopefully in 2 to 3 weeks, I'd rather have. So there are some deals out there. Out of all the players in this video, Stefon Diggs is the one that I'm probably least likely, to be trading right now, just because everything's trending up and you might not be able to get a big name for him. But you get a Jameson Williams or a Mike Evans, I do that deal. So these are the players that you could try and sell high on based on their name value or recent performances before maybe things start to cool off. Now, if you want to see some guys you could trade them for, both running backs and wide receivers, we released those videos earlier in the week. The running backs and wide receivers you should try and trade for before week 5 begins. I think these videos will help you out a ton, so be sure to check them out. And then I'll be back with Monday waivers on Monday to help you even more. So enjoy the weekend, enjoy the games this week, and I'll see you all in the next one.